All right, we are back for another episode, another week of SCMP Live Chat. This is different from the podcast. The podcast is basically most of the time just me and Nick, the boss of SCMP. But this is my show, so I get to choose what I want to talk about. I get to bring on who I want to bring on. And today, this week, I brought on two of my favorites out there to just on MMA Twitter, you know what I mean? Just Twitter, just scrolling down and just checking out what people are doing. I'm checking out what these guys are doing. First, of course, Drake, who's on my right side, I believe. Yeah, he's on my right side. If you're looking towards us, yeah, right side. And on my left side, we got Chris. Chris, he's a guy out there in New Zealand. You probably seen him pop up from time to time with some news from the City Kickboxing boys and other combat sports in that region. Chris, thank you so much, man, for coming on. What time is it right now over there?
It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, man.
Oh my god,
that's a nice time for me.
Yeah, that's like the long lunch time right there.
Yeah, exactly. Just got the NBA on and chat MMA with you guys. It's a great setup.
All right, cool. Now, if you guys haven't hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button now. If you're watching this on replay, make sure to comment, down below, get active, hit that subscribe button, share this. You got questions, put them on the chat. We'll get to those questions. We always start out with something, but then eventually we veer off to your questions. So you are the one that steers this ship. So please steer, as nice as you can. Now, first thing is, I wake up every morning. I wake up and I have a routine. I look on Twitter to just see like what's going on, because usually I'm sleeping while things are going on in North America. So when I wake up, all the news comes out. Like, this fight was canceled. This guy said this. This guy said that. This girl did this. All these things. But one thing that kind of, shined in all of that cluster is fighters and promoters. Like Tapology. I work with Tapology, and I'm pretty sure you guys go on Tapology a lot. It's an amazing resource. It's the best resource. There's nobody out there better than Tapology for MMA, for mixed martial arts. And slowly they're starting to add in like boxing and kickboxing and everything. So eventually, in like, I don't know, this Tapology will probably be around forever. Before we'll be dead and gone, Tapology will still be going. The sport will still be going. And Tapology, man, like, I saw that a lot of fighters and promoters are out there trying to fix people's change or alter fighters' records. And I was like, man, this is complete bullshit right here. Like, what are you doing? Like, that's one of the most dishonest things you can do as an athlete and as a martial artist, man. If you're a fighter, some percentage of you is a martial artist, right? If it's not 100, it's not a 90, it's either 10 or 5, or at least 1% is a martial artist. And I think if you're a martial artist, you're not going to manipulate your record, right? But I guess fighters are out there doing it. Like, I manage some of the aspects of the South Korean region of Tapology, and I've heard stories of like even fighters from not even from South Korea. They're messaging me, they're calling or they're emailing me about their record. I'm like, man, I don't control none of that stuff. But one thing about Tapology is they have this like protocol of how they fix things, and it's working really well. But man, there's fighters out there doing that, and I'm gonna start with you, Drake. Drake, what do you think of the situation of fighters or even promoters trying to fix dudes' records?
It's definitely a very ridiculous concept, but at the same time, it's not a new thing. This has actually been happening, for a while. It's just, I guess, maybe happening a lot more now if it's being brought to light by, shout out to Stephen Keller and the Tapology guys. But there's one case that always comes to mind because I, asked a fighter about this and, she brought it up. But I'll just name names since it is out there and you can find it on my channel. Shameless plug, an old interview I did with Megan Anderson. But her first 3 fights, I believe, on her professional record actually were amateur bouts, but they're listed as professional bouts because of, I don't remember exactly the reason, but like something with the management wanting to like switch the Janae Harding fight to amateur. And I think that it is on Tapology. That one is listed as amateur because of this exact reason. They kind of, played the system, however, back then, because that was, a couple of years ago now. But Megan said that her first 3 fights are actually amateur. So this kind of thing isn't new, but if it's being mentioned more and more, that's a bit of a problem because, you know, if you want honesty in pretty much anything in life, right? You want things to be true, pure. You want to be able to believe what's being put out there. But when people are playing with that, it's not cool. So unfortunately, that's always going to be around. I think you're never going to eradicate that completely. But let's try and, you know, slow down with that, could we?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's certain situations where they do need to be able to switch things around. But then, man, it's like there's another situation too where the guys are fighting under different names now. They had like 10 pro fights and their record is like 1-9. And then they register as a different person and start their career all over again. Chris, have you heard this happening in New Zealand or in Australia?
No, not in New Zealand or Australia, but hey, you never know what's going on. But when I saw that this morning, I was like, it just seems weird, like a professional sports person actually going along with this. Like, surely that's got to weigh on like the integrity side of it, and just, you know, your name being attached to stats that are just fudged. Like, it's just a very weird concept to me, like in the realm of professional sports.
It is. It's like one of the like highest levels of dishonesty, right? It's just something that I don't know. You don't want to really question the fighters too much on like I don't know, like on their integrity. But man, that's a major violation to your integrity, man. Like, what if you found
If they're
out?
willing to do that, sorry to cut you off, but like if they're willing to do that, that kind of shows a bit of a, you know, a mental, you know, lapse that they're having, right? Like that lack of confidence in themselves where, oh man, you know, I need to do this and play this side of things to maybe advance themselves rather than just accepting defeat or whatever it is and go from there, right?
Yeah, definitely. You need to, like, what if you found out? Let's say this, you know, something crazy like this. This weekend, Usman's fighting Gilbert Burns, right? So, Chris, let's say you found out later on that Gilbert or Usman, he's not. What's his record? What, 17-1 or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's up there. Something in one. Lots of fights in one.
Yeah. So 17-1, which is an incredibly insane record for an MMA fighter at the highest level too, right? He's beaten some of the greatest guys in that division. Now, imagine that you found out later on that Usman had 10 extra fights prior to that, which were pro fights, but he used a different name, which was Marty Fake Newsman, and he was 1-9, right? Like, what does that? Is that when you compare that, Chris, to like TJ Dillashaw popping for EPO? Where does that rate?
Well, I don't think it's quite the same as, you know, getting popped for EPO because unless you are doing EPO, like, I mean, you still got to go out and win those fights, don't you? It doesn't matter what your name is. So it's just something that's even weirder to me, I think, like changing your name and then going out and winning these fights because you could obviously, you know, you obviously had the potential to win these fights. Mm-hmm. Why couldn't you before? Like, I think it's all just like a having faith in yourself kind of thing, the whole belief, you know, the roller coaster of MMA. If you get on a losing streak, it can become quite tough to, you know, pick yourself back up and get in there. So maybe under a new name, it brings new life or something. Something poetic like that.
Is it like a basketball? It's got to be the shoes, so it's got to be the name. Like, you know, you could be on this terrible losing streak, and then you change your name, and then all of a sudden, you're a new person, right? You become this new version of yourself, which is Marty Fake Newsman turns into Kamaru Usman. Drake, what do you think of that? Do you think that's a possibility?
I guess, man. I don't know. It's I don't know if it's something I'm willing to give too much thought to, but yeah, it's I don't know. I can't imagine that being something that happens a whole lot, right? Like it must be happening enough to where, you know, we're talking about it right now, but that's some bold con man shit, you know. You got to be a unique type of person to go through with that, and not in a good way.
Yeah, I wonder what the thinking behind that is, because if you do accumulate a great record and you build some hype and some momentum And when you get to the highest level, let's say you go to a Bellator or the UFC or One Championship or any of those promotions, they're gonna vet you. They're gonna check your background, and then if it gets past that screening, eventually somebody in that MMA community is gonna go back and find out something is wrong with you, right? That's what MMA is known for. They're known for bringing up old garbage and then throwing it out onto the carpet and saying, "Hey, what is this? What is this? There's what happened? Who's Marty Fake Newsman? Like, who's this guy?" Like, you look exactly the same. There's footage on you. So hopefully, that doesn't happen in the future. But I have a feeling that's going to happen to somebody. It might not be at the highest level where there's a champion or something like that doing it, but it's going to happen, man. And when it does, people could watch this and say that we were fortune tellers. But anyways, let's move on to some of these questions, man, because they're flooding in right now. Some of these are kind of like in disorder. So I don't know. Someone just wrote like a bunch of matchups, and I guess they want to think about it, which is weird.
We love matchups.
Well, let's go with Drake first. This one's for Drake since he's the guest. If there's questions for Chris is he could tell you anything about this the New Zealand, the Australian scene. So if you got anything about him,
I mean, I can try.
Yeah, he can try. You know what I mean?
The pressure on, John.
Yeah. Well, hey, you got to put the pressure on a little bit, right? People are asking me about like all kinds of Asian MMA stuff, and half of the stuff I don't even know, right? So I have to be honest and be like, hey, I got to research that. I don't know what that is. It's like you asking me about China. Like, who knows about Chinese MMA, really? Because I'm here next to it, but it's so blocked off, right? But anyways, so first question we got for Drake is, this is for Drake, of course, right? Kiato Kuroba 92. I know that Rose will be a tough fight for Weili, but if Weili beats Rose, does that make her a legend because she went to have 3 of the most dangerous fighters in the division? What do you think of that, Drake?
Well, absolutely. And I would go as far to say that Weili is already a legend, especially if you look at the perspective from just what she's done for her country, China, and the fact that she's only the 2nd world champion, in history, and the 1st in the UFC. So, and just the run that she's been on, 21-1, and who she's beat and how she's done it, how she's looked. I think that you could definitely say she is already an MMA legend just because of, the situation around her and what she's representing. So if she beats Rose, which I expect her to do that if that fight is ever made, it just further, cements her place in history. And, MMA historians, myself included, it's going to be a bittersweet if Weili does get that next win, because then she will tie Megumi Fuji's 22-fight winning streak for the longest in women's history. So I think that is definitely enough for Weili to already be considered a legend if she's 1 fight away from that.
Chris, what do you think? Rose or Weili? This is basically a question to see if does Weili become, does she break records or does Rose become a legend in this fight? What do you think it is?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I really like Rose, but if you watch her most recent fight against Jessica Andrade and in the late rounds how she got a little bit pieced up, if you look at that matchup against Weili, I don't think that goes particularly well for Rose, just given recent performances. I think Rose of a few years ago, before she lost the title, obviously a different beast. But yeah, Weili's something different, man. She's impressive.
All right. Now, for myself, I don't know. I don't know about this. I don't know if Rose is a legend. You know what I mean? It's hard to say. Legend is something that it takes time to develop, right? Legend status. It just doesn't. You don't just win a couple fights and you're a legend, right? Come on, let's keep it real. It's not like you win like you. It's there's a difference between legends and like goats and icons. Like I go into this all the time. Like it's a difference. And then the legend one gets thrown around too much. Like Shogun is a legend, right? Like no matter what you say about Shogun right now, the guy has built this resume across the board as legend. Like you cannot take that away from him. If you argue against Shogun being a legend, then you are the opposite of a legend. You're a serf. if you know what a serf is. You're a serf, right? Like,
Ouch.
come on. Yeah, it's like you don't argue that. That's there's certain people that are legend that accumulate. Rose, if she beats Weili, that's one step towards becoming a legend. She could possibly, be in the argument as one of the greatest of all time at that weight if she beats Weili, right? That's a better argument than becoming a legend, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, if Weili wins, man, she's just one step closer to becoming a legend. Also, and breaking that record adds to the legendary status too. You know what I mean? It's not like that doesn't count. Championships count, but then records count. It's like Donald Cowboy Cerrone. That guy's a legend. Like he doesn't have titles, but he's done legendary things, like legendary status. Like he has stats on top of stats, like records. Like you can't take that away from him. But that one you could be argued, right? That one's something I could argue with somebody about. But Shogun, there's no argument. Like he's won so much and he's beaten some of the biggest names. So with the legend stuff, let's chill on it. Let's chill, dog. All right. Now, right here we got Tristan, a guy that's frequent to the show. Drake with the blonde flow. Man, get out of here with that.
This is true.
I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with blonde hair next week too.
There we go.
We all look like Eminem. Here's a good question. Allen Bones Jones, Marty Fake Newsman versus C-Level Kane. Who wins in this one? In the mythical welterweight versus heavyweight clash. What do you think, Chris?
Kane is the best, the mythical fight name ever.
Yeah, because it sounds like someone from the Bible, right? It sounds like the guy that Moses. It sounds like the guy that Moses was fighting on the other side, but we never get to see who it is when he parted the seas. C-Level Kane was coming out on the other side, but we didn't see him because I think Moses got rid of him before that. But that's C-Level Kane. I never even thought about that. That's C-Level Kane. C-Level Kane is really at the sea level, walking with Moses across the river. I don't know the whole story. I don't remember the whole story, but I remember that he parted the seas and they walked across. I think C-Level Kane was part of that crew, and he was the only one who survived. And the genes moved on, and then that's what we get right now from Cain Velasquez. Anyways, I don't know what we're talking about. Just nonsense. What's next? This is a good question, Tristan. This is for Chris. Does Chris coach Dan Hooker at all? Does he work with Dan Hooker? This is a good question. Do you coach him?
I definitely do not coach Dan Hooker. He was actually my boxing coach a couple years ago, which was quite fun. But yeah, I don't work with Dan Hooker per se. I go in and bug the city kickboxing guys all the time. But aside from that, I kind of just stand in the corner watching them most of the time. So no, I can't help you with Dan Hooker's boxing. Sorry.
All right, okay, so let's get into the city kickboxing boys. Like you've been doing a lot of interviews in the gym, right? Which is something that you really rarely see nowadays because of the pandemic. But you guys are in this situation where you guys can go around and be around each other. It's not a big deal. So how has the gym been, like getting in there? Like I think that's what people want to know. Is it hard for you to get in there and talk to these guys? Or do you just walk in and everybody's like, "Oh, Chris," it's like Cheers. Everybody knows your name.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when you put it that way, it is a little bit like that. Sometimes, like I'll go in and they'll just be like, "Oh, hey," just saying hello to all the fighters. But I think it's very dependent on who you are with city kickboxing. So when I started doing the reporting on them, that was just as Israel was breaking into the UFC. And I was trying to just get them as much coverage as I possibly could. And I think they saw that and just the interest I took in it, the amount of coverage I was trying to get them. And, that was appreciated. And just from then, it's pretty much just been, if you ever need something, just call, or occasionally if it's like one of the lesser fighters outside of the UFC, like I'll just straight up message them and say, "Are you around the gym tomorrow? I'll come in for a chat." And then set it up like that. Like it's very easy going. Like I don't know how it works around the rest of the world, but from what I've learned in other sports, like we have it very, very easy with some of the guys that we work with in MMA.
Yeah, one thing that I notice about like interviewing fighters, if you can get into the gym, they're more like, I guess, more open to doing interviews rather than trying to get them on like Skype or like anything to do with the phone or something like that. It's just much harder. So shout out to all the people that actually do interviews from their home, from long distance, remotely, whatever. It's hard to get these fighters because some of them will do one if you're there. So that's what advantage that Chris has, is he's there, so he could go in there and be like, all right, can I talk with what's his name? And they're most likely gonna. It's harder to avoid you when you're sitting in front of their face, right, Drake? Right? Like
Yeah.
you're sitting in front of their
Very
face.
true.
So what about you? What is yours?
That is true.
What about your situation with you going out and actually visiting gyms? Is it getting easier for you, Drake?
I mean, I haven't really tried to since, everything happened. I have done two. One was at a gym, and the fighter, Chris Sunshine Lencioni, it was his gym. So like he kind of can call the shots. Around here in Washington State, things are still pretty closed. Some things are open, but like for the most part, these kind of things are still kind of shut down. So I haven't even really bothered with it, but it just depends on really who you're going to see. But most people out here are pretty cool anyway. So if I wanted to pursue it more, I could probably make it work. But it's like it's just it's an extra hassle at the moment.
Chris, there's a guy that has been doing interviews with City Kickboxing for a long time. The OG Combat TV. Tell me about him, man, because I don't know anything about him, but I watch his interviews because he's always at the gym with all the guys.
Yeah, so he's been doing it for a long time, and obviously as the gym's gotten more popular, so is Combat TV. Like he's not just working with City Kickboxing; like, he does all over the place around the country, and he's like you say, the OG when it comes to fight coverage in New Zealand and in-depth fight coverage. Like he probably gets more access than I do, or equal access. And access is a big part of these things. Like if you can show interest in the sport, if you can show that you're trying to help them push it out there, they will give you what you want. And Tony, who I think his name's Tony, the guy who runs it, he obviously cottoned on to that really, really early. And ever since then, he's just been plugging away. And as the guys and girls got more and more popular, I think we're starting to see more and more content, and more people are starting to tune into his interviews, which is really good to see.
Yeah, it is. It shows you that, longevity. Like he's been doing it for a long time, and it's working for him, man. He hit the gold mine with those City Kickboxing boys. Anything that they put up is usually a hit. But he does have a lot of followers, so if you don't know about his channel, I recommend go watching his channel. He basically catches the fighters before and after training, so they're like either they're like upright and they're energized, or they're just kind of like chilled out, tired. I don't know. It all depends on who you're gonna get that day. But he's there. He's got access. He's the one who usually gets the news out of the fighters, like subliminally, like little pieces of information you could get out of his interviews. All right, so since we're talking about, let's continue with the topic of City Kickboxing. We got a question here that actually connects to what I want to talk about. Let me find it. Oh, here it is. From Z Skill 29, when Stylebender beats Jan. Okay, so he's already saying Stylebender is going to beat Jan. Do you guys think that he will be a big pay-per-view star, or is he already a pay-per-view star? We'll start with you, Drake.
I think he's already a star, definitely, but how big of a star, I'm still not totally sure of, how much his popularity translates worldwide just yet. Of course, becoming double champ would absolutely help that. You cannot deny it, but you got to think about his dance partner. Jan Blachowicz, you can't go wrong with the guy. Great guy, right? Very nice, awesome fighter to watch, puts on great shows, gets fantastic highlight reel finishes, but he's not a polarizing character himself, and I think that you kind of need two to tango to elevate each other, right? We've seen this many times with, of course, the big example to go to is Conor and like Nate Diaz, or whoever Conor fights, Habib. Diaz and Habib, they were very popular in their own right before facing Conor, but once they went and beat him, it took them to whole new heights and everything. I think that this would work better in the reverse. If Jan could beat, if he beats Stylebender, that elevates him significantly. But at the same time, he's not really playing that playing ball to have a fun lead up to the fight, other than them both being champions. So essentially, yeah, he will be a bigger star for sure. But I don't know. I'm not really sure of just his popularity overall, and if this is the matchup to get him to that next level. If it was John Jones, different story. Different story.
Chris, what do you think about the whole situation of the pay-per-view stardom, celebrity, his status in the world?
Well, worldwide, like Drake said, I'm not sure like how his popularity translates in terms of pay-per-views. I know like down here and particularly in Asia as well, where he kind of made his name, that's where most of his fandom comes from. So in terms of worldwide, I guess pay-per-view popularity, I agree with what Drake said. Like Israel's one hell of a fighter, one hell of a showman, but you do need the other side to play ball. Otherwise, you just get one guy sort of talking and the other one just being like, we're going to have a great fight. It's going to be good fun. I'll see you in the cage, that kind of thing. Like, that doesn't sell pay-per-views. So, yeah, I think it really depends on Dance Partner. If he wins a second title, and then we can start looking at, John Jones might become available. I know they've said that they want to go back down to middleweight almost straight away, but there's also some fun fights at middleweight, like Darren Till. I know they want that fight. Like, I think that would sell. It all just depends on the B side.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm thinking, are they gonna bring in Israel, early into the US to do promo? Like go to ESPN, go to the major networks and just do interviews. And they should probably just do the same with Jan too. I mean, they're both coming from outside the US. Bring them in like 2 weeks early and promote the fight, because all the pay-per-views are mostly in North America, right? Like, are you guys buying pay-per-views in New Zealand?
Yep. We buy pay-per-views down here, but pay-per-views are way cheaper down here. Like I saw this morning that you guys, well, in America it costs them like $70. It's like half price down here. We get them for 35, which is that's all right. Yeah,
that's not bad.
So I don't have any problem buying pay-per-views like every couple of weeks or every month. Like the Usman fight this weekend. Like I'll buy that. There's a couple of good fights on there I want to watch, so I will.
Yeah, like I'm better. I'm luckier. Like I just pay like a yearly subscription and I get every UFC fight, Bellator fight, those two top promotions. For some reason, we got a good deal over here in Korea to watch those. So the yearly is only like $100-something, so it's not that bad for all the pay-per-views. Shit, that's a good deal. Now, with Israel, man, in my mind, I think he's a massive star in my mind, right? But then when you think of it as like a pay-per-view star, has he put up the numbers to be a pay-per-view star? Will Jan Blachowicz be the guy that puts him over that hump? Nah, I don't think so. He needs to fight John Jones. If he fights John Jones, that's the only name that's going to propel each other, basically. They're going to propel each other, right? And John Jones needs to win that heavyweight title. If he doesn't win the heavyweight title, does the John Jones-Israel Adesanya fight seem as big? Will it benefit them as much? I don't think so. I think Israel has to stay undefeated, and unless they both coming off losses, like Israel's coming off a loss against Jan, and then and Jones loses the title fight against whoever wins between Stipe and Francis. Maybe that could be sold like that, but both these guys coming in undefeated with belts, man, that would make them both into massive. Well, John has proven himself, but yeah, Stylebender, man, he's still climbing. And he's a massive star already, so his stardom could surpass John Jones, and because he's more international than anything, right? And I think getting that international market first, and then heading into the U.S. and blowing up in the U.S., which he can do easily. I think we still got that in the future. We still got it in the path of Stylebender. But right now, this fight is interesting for us, but I think for like the regular Joe Schmo, they probably don't really care about it too much. Do you think they care about it? Do you think Israel is like big enough, Chris, to where like Joe Schmo in New Zealand is like, oh my God? No, they don't talk like that, but
I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, in New Zealand, Israel is huge. Like, he's probably the biggest, if not, well, one of the biggest, if not the biggest star we have at the moment. Everyone knows who Israel is now, so they all take some sort of interest in what he does, whether they like him or not. Particularly with the Hyon fight, like, Jan's just coming off a real nasty knockout. So there's a lot of interest knowing that Jan has power and is going to weigh more than Israel, is a normal light heavyweight. Like, there's a lot of things at play that people are like, okay, this could be all right. And, you know, Israel might actually lose, but we will see what happens.
Exactly. I think Israel has this like a group out there where they want him to lose because he's got to that point, right? Where he's won continuously. He's undefeated. You know, he has a big mouth, which is always good. And it brings you a lot of haters at the same time, haters that want you to lose. And those haters will buy pay-per-views to watch you lose or to tell people when you lose how you watched the fight and you knew that he was going to lose. You know, there's that group of people out there. It's like a massive group, right? That you know, like Floyd Mayweather was the one that kind of created that market, right? Of hate me so much that you're going to buy my pay-per-views and I'm still going to win and make all this money off you, the hater, right? And I feel like Israel could get to that point. He's the one. He's Neo in the Matrix, but the Matrix is the UFC. And he's the one. He just needs to take the blue pill or the green pill or the pink pill, whatever. Pink pill, because it's pink hair, right? Anyways, but you know, like that, I have faith in Israel becoming that level. And I've heard from people, many people, man, that Israel is like, he cannot be alone in New Zealand. Like, they're just all over him, dude. Like, it's almost like
it's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like, public appearances, it's nuts. Like, this was even before his last fight, and and it can be overwhelming, but it seems like he's handling it well. You know what I mean? And it also helps where you're kind of isolated in your country, where it's not as big as Eric. You know, like, people are not like driving from hundreds and hundreds of miles to kind of stalk you and stuff like that. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's happening.
That's true.
They're flying.
Yeah, they're flying in or they're parachuting in from the
Taking
island
boats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like the Israel crisis right there. Everybody's trying to get in there. But yeah, like with this fight, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm actually going to speak with Jan in the next week or so to, of course, promote the fight, right? But I'm very interested to see if anything has changed in his mindset with Stylebender. And because the last time I talked to him, Stylebender was on the table, but nothing was signed. But now it's signed and they're ready to go. So it's going to be fun. And are you in there, Chris? Like watching the practices?
Not very often. Like, again, if I've set up an interview, like, or I'm picking up a fighter shirt or something, I'll kind of hang around and see what's going on. But I normally time my visits for the end of practice, just so I'm not getting in the way. So if they do like a full-on media session with all the local media, they normally let us in for, obviously, for practice, so everyone can get their shots. But then they don't show us anything too secretive. So.
Of course.
We just see them hit pads a lot.
Yeah. All right, let's see. What is it? What we got here? We got a bunch of stuff. It's just zigging and zigs and zags, and it's just like all over the place. All right, here's one about New Zealand. All right, this one is for Drake. Where is the best venue a promotion should run in New Zealand during the pandemic? Drake, do you know this? Do you know information about this that I don't know?
I wouldn't know. New Zealand.
Of course, this is an obvious question for Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
It depends what kind of promotion you're doing. Obviously, if it's UFC, you're probably looking at Spark Arena in Auckland. That's where they held the February show last year. That was packed. Like, that was probably one of the best atmospheres of any live sporting event I've ever been in, especially when they called out Dan Hooker as the winner. Like, the roof just went off that place. But if you're looking at trying to host like a Israel fight, you're going to need somewhere bigger than that, because I think that's 10,000, 13,000 seater. If they ever put on Adesanya fight down here, it would be like 20,000. I think they'd probably want 20,000 plus. So then you're looking at sort of Mount Smart in Auckland, maybe Forsyth Bar Stadium down south in Dunedin. That's I think 30,000 rugby field, but that's got a roof, which obviously is a big thing for the UFC. So those are probably your three main ones that might host an event, and then like smaller events like regional promotions. There's a couple of stadiums around Auckland, like North Shore Stadium. But yeah, we don't need to go too much into that because that seems a little bit way too niche.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, like those, that's top of my list right there. Those top 5 right there for me. In New Zealand, I'm gonna have to go
for sure, 100%.
Give them a call and push for this, push for the stadium show in New Zealand. Man, there's so many questions,
well,
dude.
The pandemic's going on, that's never gonna happen.
Exactly, right. And then remember when everybody was like, oh yeah, the UFC, they're gonna do a show outside of Vegas and Fight Island, and why don't you do it in New Zealand? Because New Zealand is like, there's no COVID in New Zealand and it's so safe, and I want you to break it down for the people why it's almost impossible to do a show in New Zealand, especially for the UFC. Like local sports I can understand, but UFC.
For the UFC, for it to even make sense, they'd have to book out like at least a month of shows in New Zealand, because they'd have to bring their whole production team over, and they'd all have to quarantine for 2 weeks. They'd all have to get similar tickets to actually get into the country at the same time, and then do their quarantining for 2 weeks. Just for that many people, and you have to pay for your quarantine as well. Like, it just logistically does not make sense for the UFC to come down here while that's in place. If they only had to quarantine maybe 48 hours like they do in Abu Dhabi, then maybe they'd think about it. But 2 weeks is a little bit way too much.
Yeah, I think like there's too many things that has to line up, and it doesn't seem like the New Zealand government is going to play ball with any company just to like do a couple of sporting events to risk the nation.
Right.
Tristan, going back to that question about the coach thing, Tristan thought you were a coach for City Kickboxing, because last week I said that I'm gonna have a coach on, and actually, Tristan, I'm gonna have a coach on next week. Now, last week I wasn't actually gonna have a show this week, but then I was like, man, I gotta have a show this week. I can't skip another week, so I got Chris on here and Drake. But anyways, Tristan, yes. So my apologies.
I'm glad I can pass as a coach. Who have you got on next week?
Douglas Fry. He is the husband and coach of Jinyu Fry, and and he coaches a bunch of other people. But yeah, someone
nice.
Someone that is a coach and a nutritionist too at the same time, which is interesting to talk to. And we'll talk about Jin too, you know what I mean, a lot. But I think she's at Fortis getting ready for her next fight. Anyways, another thing that Tristan said, you said last week. Yeah, sorry, Tristan, I didn't mean to honey dick you a little bit on that. All right, so let's get into some other stuff here. We got a bunch of questions. Man, let's go into this one. I guess we're going to turn this into a whole question. I had a whole list of things I would talk about, but we got a lot of questions here. All right, so let's get into this one. We'll start with Drake. How long should Frankie be on hiatus after the brutal KO, and who should be next for Sandhagen, as he would like Garbrandt, but I don't see that one happening. He also mentioned T.J. Dillashaw would be someone that he's interested in fighting, because he knows that most likely he's not going to get a title shot next. What do you think, Drake? What do you think of this whole, first off, Frankie, like him getting like starched?
Yeah, that was madness. I mean, I'm not really surprised that he got starched, but the fact that it was a flying knee and within 30 seconds, that was, absolutely ridiculous. Did not see that coming. But yeah, very brutal loss, obviously, as we saw just how ridiculous it was. But how long should he be gone for? I I don't know, maybe 6 months at least. It's always hard to tell with, these fighters who, in that kind of case, they want to make up for that so badly, so quickly, but you're like, that's not the best idea. So depending on, the medical suspensions and all of that, I guess ideally, if I had to say a specific number, let's go 6 months and, wait it out, man. Sandhagen, though, I did not know that he was interested in, saying Garbrandt and Dillashaw. And I don't know why he would feel like he's not going to get the next title shot. I feel like, how do you not give it to him after that, right? I've seen the argument that if Sterling wins against Jan, which is very possible, then, oh, well, Sterling beat Sandhagen pretty recently, which is true. But, look at what Sandhagen's done to his two opponents since then, and, he's looked fantastic. How would you not want to see that rematch despite the shortness in time? He's obviously gotten a lot better, and I don't know. I just think that sets itself up too well. And then even if Jan wins, then of course, who else is going to fight besides Sandhagen for the title? TJ Dillashaw should not be getting an instant title shot coming back after cheating and losing in 30 seconds to Henry Cejudo. That just does not. That's not right in my opinion. I don't think TJ should even be thrown against the number one contender, Corey Sandhagen. I think he should fight somebody like Rob Font. That would be an amazing fight. That's a good one to come back for both of those guys. We don't know what kind of TJ we're going to get when he comes back, but Corey Sandhagen, I think, wait for your title shot, man. I don't see anybody else getting it above you unless the UFC feels TJ should, which I feel like would be ridiculous, and there'd be some backlash to that.
Chris, when you hear the name TJ Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt and Corey Sandhagen thrown together, what is your feelings about that?
I'm the same as Drake. Why wouldn't Sandhagen get the next title shot? If I were him, you look at his past two fights, just how dominant those wins were. I'm holding out for that title shot, man. Dillashaw can come in and fight Jose Aldo or something, or they could even try and book Garbrandt versus Dillashaw again because that's always fun.
For TJ,
yeah. But Sandhagen's earned that title shot. Unless they're going to give it to Rob Font, who's the only other guy in that division who might have claims to that title shot. That's Sandhagen's, man. I think everyone wants to see that guy fight for the title next after what he did to Frankie Edgar, and because it was Frankie Edgar.
Man, Sandhagen, he has turned a corner. That's understated right there. After that Sterling fight where he just got tapped out real quick. I've talked to him a few times throughout the years, and man, that's the thing that he talks about is it's not physical, it's mental, and after that Sterling fight, his mentality has changed, and look at him, he's just literally flying around, knocking people out, the best guys in the world, just flying around he's like Peter Pan of the UFC, right? He just needed people. That was one of the most beautiful knockouts ever. And a Radical Rosh, dude, it's so funny. Look what he said. He said, "Did you see Frankie Edgar try to overturn his loss to Sandhagen? He claimed he was playing possum Ian.
Did he really?
No way.
I didn't. It's not true.
I think he's joking. I think
he just took it like a champ.
But this is a great comment, though, right? This is something that would be funny to just see if Frankie actually did that, right? But I don't see Frankie doing that.
That'd be sad, John. That would be
it
sad.
would be sad, but it's funny though. I love that Radical Rosh, dude. Radical Rosh doing it right. And these are the comments that I want, right? These are the scenarios that I want to see. Yes, Frankie was playing possum, but Frankie. The one thing about Frankie is he never changes how he approaches a fight in the beginning of a fight. He always coming in like this, right? That's just Frankie. That's how he starts. And man, Sandhagen, he knew, and he just did he even throw any punches before that?
I don't think so, man. Maybe one jab out there, but I don't remember any. Very quick.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't really throw that many punches in the first 28 seconds of a fight, really, can you?
Exactly, right? I could probably throw 1,500 jabs, but none of them will be close to the other person, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, Sandhagen, man, I feel like he is the biggest threat right now. Sterling, he did well against Sandhagen, but and you saw the difference between Sterling and after he was KO'd by Moraes. You saw him change a little bit too to a much better fighter. But man, Sandhagen, he's just like the explosiveness and like the deadly factor, like the finishing factor. Like you got to give it to Sandhagen, right? The guy can and we haven't even seen him try to finish on the ground that much, right? But he can finish on the ground too. He's long, he's linky, he got good jiu-jitsu, scrambles. He trains with Ryan Hall, so you know that his jiu-jitsu skills are elevated too. So
well, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we'll
you
see
remember
what
that Alcantara fight, man? Like, jeez.
He got out of the armbar.
Badly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just the punishment he took too from the ground and pound. Like the guy is very, very tough. Like that was was that his debut? Like that was a crazy debut to have.
Yeah, it was one of the first fights he had. But yeah, so now let's see, what do we have? Okay, here's the one about Peter Yan, just sticking with the division. Let's see what this guy has to say. Damn it, here it is.
I hope we see Corey Sandhagen put Peter Pan of MMA in all his bios now.
I hope so. Here's one. It says, if Sterling wins, I'd rather see Sterling versus Dillashaw, since Sterling already fought Sandhagen so
Get
recently.
out of here, Tristan. Get out of here.
Tristan, getting Drake emotional right now. Tristan, come on. This is what we want. We want emotional people on this one. But do you think this would be a possibility? Would you like to see? Do you think TJ would wait that long? Do you think he would wait another 3, 4, 5, 6 months possibly just to make his return? Or do you see TJ coming in and fighting someone? You guys mentioned earlier you'd like to see him fight maybe Garbrandt or why wouldn't you even like to see him fight Dominic Cruz? You know, like I don't think he should just come in and fight, you know, just like the top 3 or top 4. I think he should fight even top 5. I think he should fight somebody like 6 or down, something like that, right? And Dominic Cruz, I know he has a fight with Casey Kenny, but then Casey Kenny's drowned in that controversy of Megan Anderson, right? And maybe they'll switch that up and we'll see him fight Dominic Cruz. Jose Aldo is a great option, like you guys mentioned earlier. And who's another good option for TJ?
Even Frankie, maybe.
Frankie Sean O'Malley.
Yeah. Well, O'Malley. You know, yeah, O'Malley would be good.
Put him in there against O'Malley.
What are you guys thinking about O'Malley and his coach? Is that his head coach, Tim Welch? That's his head coach, right?
Pretty sure.
Yeah, his head coach, and I know that they have a podcast, but man, they are very reckless with what they say. Yeah, it's a very
reckless is one word for it.
They are very reckless and almost like, to me, to be honest with you, would you want to be a guest on that show? Because they could look at the Casey Kenny situation, man.
Guilt by association.
I felt like Casey Kenny, right? Like I've talked to him multiple times. He's one of the nicest guys. Like he'll say what he thinks, but it's not like, you know, anything malicious, right? But like in a way, the dude set up Casey Kenny, man, with that question. Like, why would you ask him that question? If he's your friend and you're on the podcast, you guys are not comedians, like comedians do that. I think fighters and comedians, it's like basketball players and rappers, like they want to be each other. Now in this world, it's like fighters want to be comedians and comedians want to be fighters. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And we have some of those. We have the Brendan Schaubs and all that, right? So like, why would you set somebody up with that question? You know what I mean? Like that, to me, it's like there's no right answer. You already messed up by asking that question. And I feel bad for Casey Kenny, but at the same time, Casey Kenny could have probably responded with something better. But it almost seemed like, did you guys notice that they were kind of under the influence?
I didn't notice it, but yeah, probably.
Yeah, I mean, in that show, you would think that they're under the influence, right? But I'm just talking about this openly, but just it's weird, man. And to me, if I was a fighter, I probably wouldn't go on that show, man, because they'll set you up. You know, there's reporters and journalists out there that they're gonna ask you tough questions, but they're not gonna set you up with that type of question, right? Like, you know, like why would you ask that? It's like in reverse, you know, like. In reverse, it's the same thing. It's like, why would you even ask that? There's no point. And I don't know. It's very weird. But anyways, going back to what is it? The questions. Let's go back to the questions. This person, Alan Bones Jones. I love to see Jan versus Sandhagen or Sterling versus Sandhagen too. but I want to see Rob Font get a future title shot also. How far is Rob Font, do you think, is away from a title shot in that division? His last win was against Marlon Moraes, and I'm starting to feel like a win over Marlon Moraes doesn't mean as much as it did 2 years ago. And Marlon is, man, he's having like a, like he didn't win the title, but he's having like a Henan Burrell type of fall off, right? This decline is just very steep. Of course he's still fighting the best guys in the world, but man, he's getting just like dominated, right? And it's like weird how it happens. It's like he's in the fight and then something happens like right in the middle of the first round and he just clicks off and then he's done. Like it's not him anymore in there. And what do you think? Let's go back to Rob Font. Like, how far is he away, Drake?
I feel like he's got to be 1 fight, 2 fights max. Because if you look at where Marlon was at the time of that fight, he was ranked number 3, right? He was still a top guy and had only lost to top guys in Cejudo and Sanhagen, which I think it's more credit to his opponents than Marlon dropping off. I'm not ready to say that he's going down the Henan Burrell route just yet. That is a very devastating claim to make, John. How dare you? Marlon Rice, I think he'll turn it around. Let's see how he does against somebody lower down the totem pole. And I guess Rob Font was that step in that direction. But again, Rob Font, man, a pretty underrated boxer, as we saw, as he was able to touch the chin and put Marlon out. So it was a very good win, I thought, for Rob Font, and he should be very close. I don't have the rankings up right in front of me, but who he would get instead, like, I like a Cody Garbrandt fight. I think that could make sense. If he wins, though, it's one of those cases where Rob Font wins, I give him title shot or 1 fight away maximum after that. But if Cody beats him, I don't know. I feel weird to get Cody towards titles anytime soon, just because he's got only 1 win, in all this time. But yeah, I think Rob is very close. I think he's 2 maximum. I'd be fine with whatever his next fight is, though. A win could get him there, I would say.
All right, now this one is from Ghost Phantom 98. Shout out to him, Chris. This one's for you. Why do people want Peter Yan to lose? He doesn't have a boring style or says outlandish things. Do you think that there's this narrative that people want Peter Yan to lose, Chris? Do you want Peter Yan to lose, Chris?
No, I don't. Like, I don't know. Like, you see, people who don't like Peter Yan really don't like Peter Yan. It's something weird. Like, he hasn't really done that much to, I guess, lose fans aside from that video he posted a couple of weeks ago and then deleted very quickly. Yeah, why people want Peter Yan to lose? I don't know. Maybe they just didn't like seeing Jose Aldo being beat to a pulp like he was in that title fight, or maybe they don't think he deserves that title, having beaten, Uriah Faber to get that shot. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to that fight, but I don't really have a horse in the race. Like, I'm not really looking one way or the other. So I guess everyone will think what they want to.
Yeah, everybody's going to think what they want, man. And it's good that people want Peter Yan to lose. I think that that's a good thing because Peter Yan's going to play off of that. And that's going to motivate Peter Yan. He's like, I don't know, the vibes you get from Peter Yan when you speak to him is like he has been in some things and involved in some things that we will never find out ever. Like, he'll never reveal to us in his native lands, right? Like, he's like a character off King of the Rings. What is that movie or that Throne of King of Thrones? Is that King of
Game
Thrones?
of Thrones.
Oh, Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones. See, I don't watch this show, so it's hard for me to remember the name. But yeah, he's like a character off that. I've seen like the first season or something like that. But yeah, Peter Yan could be a character on there that like he's like a warrior, and he like leads a group of other warriors that are a bunch of bantamweights. They're like 5'8", smaller guys, but they could kill you in an instant, right? Like I could see Peter Yan being that guy, and if people are gonna hate that, hate it, man. There's nothing you can do because he's gonna go in there and he's gonna have that style where he just beats you up, and it's crazy to, I don't know, it's gonna be crazy to watch him lose or even just get finished because we haven't really seen him like completely like rocked. You know what I mean? We've seen him get dropped, but we haven't seen him like just like in complete trouble. Like we haven't seen him in that like Edson Barboza spinning head kick, heel kick on Kevin Lee when he was Bambi. Like he was just like he was doing like the pop and lock in the middle of the octagon, right? And dancing on ice at the same time, right? So we haven't seen that from Peter Yan. I'm waiting for that moment because that will show how tough Peter Yan is. But we haven't seen anybody be able to do that. And do you think Sterling is going to be able to do that? I don't think Sterling's going to be able to do that. I think Sterling's best chance is to get Peter Yan down. And the messed up part about that is Peter Yan is a very good wrestler and has great scrambles. So Sterling has to out scramble a great scrambler. That's going to be a tough job right there, right? You know, I'm thinking if Sterling decides to stand and trade with Peter Yan, my senses tell me like, man, that's gonna be a long night for Sterling. But we seen Brian Ortega come in and just show us that, hey, you can learn new things and come in and utilize it in the UFC at the highest level in a main event fight. So we never know what's gonna happen with that, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm a big Peter Yan fan. I guess I'm a fan. I don't know. Who cares? Nobody cares if I'm a fan or not. They're just like, who gives a shit?
You never doubt someone who trains out of Tiger Muay Thai.
Exactly.
Rafael Fizie's shown that. Like everyone counted that guy out, and he's just coming and being an absolute beast.
All right, so we got some predictions already. Sterling will out wrestle Sanhagen and tap him again, possibly. Here's a good one. Uriah Faber versus TJ. You see, that one is a good comeback fight.
Does Uriah still want to fight though?
Well, for TJ,
right?
Why not?
Make
right?
that a main event.
Let's. I would like to see Uriah come out with like some kind of like social media post, just putting everything on the table with TJ, just everything. And I think once he does that, then you just put the bait out there, and then the UFC is gonna take the bait and then shove it into TJ's mouth, right? That's what's gonna happen. And then they're like, reel it in. Let's go. Let's get this thing, going. Yeah, I would love to see that. That would be great. Now, there's a bunch of like Sterling and stuff like that. Marlon, and we'll get to some of the other questions about the women's MMA. But I wanted to get into the Bellator announcements, right? There was a bunch of announcements with Bellator. Let me get them on the screen here. And the first one is I think the first one we could get into is the title fight, right? Before we get into the tournament, the title
two
fight.
2 title fights.
Yeah, 2 title fights, but the first title fight
technically
is
3.
is the one that's like legit is Juan Archuleta versus Sergio Pettis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's start with you, Drake. What did you think about this one? Was this the fight to make, or was there somebody else in that bantamweight division that is more deserving?
No, this was 100% the fight to make, and I know everyone is gonna be like Horiguchi, and trust me, I am right there with you, you guys. That possibly, I think it could have happened, right? The thing would be, it would have to be the Bellator title fight. Juan can't go over to Japan right now. Not, any fighters really can. So it wasn't going to happen in that direction. So I guess I understand the case of Horiguchi going over there. But, depending on what his plans are coming up here, surely he'll want to get back in there sooner rather than later. Most likely, rise in title defense. So you take him out of the equation, a guy who's already a lot busier than Sergio Pettis, who rightfully deserves his title shot as well. I don't know. I could be blanking on somebody, which I'm surely am, because that Bellator bantamweight division has heated up lately. Just got Magomedov, unless I'm mixing up my Russian names, but the guy who beat Peter Yan, of course, to go full circle right there. So I think Sergio is the right choice. The guy has been looking great since going to Bellator, and I have no issues with it. Of course, I absolutely want to see Archuleta versus Horiguchi. I think we will see it at some point, of course, assuming that Archuleta gets by Pettis here, but don't worry, guys. I'm sure Horiguchi will get in that mix. It is just, harder right now because of the worldwide situation.
Do you think Archuleta is a top let's say top 10 bantamweight in the world, or do you feel like he still needs a couple more wins, Chris?
It's always a tough one when you look at guys in Bellator, like where you place them in terms of where they sit in the world. Like Archuleta is fantastic, but like how would he stack up against the top 10 in the UFC? It's the same sort of situation we saw with Michael Chandler. Like Michael Chandler's been good in Bellator for so many years, and when he came to the UFC, he got straight into the backup spot as the title fight. It's like, is he really this good? And then obviously he showed against Dan Hooker. I think Archuleta, if he got a shot in the UFC, he'd be. I think he'd be top 10, but I mean that's just my opinion. A lot of people might think differently, and really, it's very hard to say one way or the other. I know, very, very sitting on the fence answer there, but that's how we do it.
If Archuleta went over to the UFC, would he deserve a top 10 opponent? That's the question, right? Would he deserve a top 10 opponent? Michael Chandler, I felt like he did deserve a top 10 opponent, a top 15. I don't know about a top 5, but top 15, he deserved someone like that, entering the UFC. But with Juan Archuleta, I don't know if he does deserve like a top 10 opponent if he enters the UFC. I feel like he does need to beat a couple more guys. And Pettis, he was fighting at 125. You got to remember that, right? Archuleta was fighting at what, 145, and then he goes down to 135. So he's been fighting at those like different multiple weight classes. With this fight coming up with Pettis, this is just another fight to build that bantamweight division. I feel like they need to build it more. Right now, to be honest with you, I think Rizin has a better bantamweight division than Bellator does.
Yeah.
Could you argue that, Drake? Like, who has a better bantamweight division?
Yeah, I mean, I can name more of the bantamweight, fighters in Rizin at the moment, but no, I think I would agree with that. The point, though, overall, is that just bantamweight worldwide is just incredible, man. I think globally, best division in MMA for me right now. All of these, there's the mix of people in the top 15 is just so crazy. I think you could pick from all over the place. And, Archuleta's around like 14, 15 for me if I was to put him somewhere. But, yeah, overall, I would say Rizin definitely does have the better guys right now. And if I was to favor who in matchups against each other, I would lean towards the Japan brand.
Yeah, I would like to see them send more of the bantamweights over to Bellator, some of the Rizin bantamweights, and just get them more fights yearly. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that they fight enough, some of them. So just to go over there and kind of mix it up, even not with the big names, just with the mid-tier bantamweights that they're trying to build up, have them fight the Japanese fighters, and vice versa. There's no titles on the line, so it's just building them up. I think that's the key for both of the divisions. And you said, you're right, bantamweight is one of the most stacked divisions in the world. That, like, worldwide, bantamweight is probably like 2 in stacked divisions, right? You got the lightweight division, and I feel like the bantamweight division is neck and neck with the lightweight division. It's just insane, the amount of talent. And did you see that the Brave CF bantamweight champion Stephen Lohman from Team Lakai, he signed with one championship.
Right.
Like, his contract expired with Brave, and he just jumped right into one championship. I heard the UFC was trying to sign him. I heard Bellator was trying to sign him. I heard everybody was trying to sign him. But those Team Lakai boys, man, they're one championship, like 100%, because like almost every person on their team is fighting for one championship. But you know what, though? I would have liked to seen him like sign with Bellator or the UFC, just because, you want guys to fight for different, like, isn't that kind of weird, right? Like, if you have a bunch of bantamweights or a bunch of lighter weight guys in your team, wouldn't you want them to fight in different promotions instead of stacking them up into one promotion? Chris, when you see something like that, like a team just all in one promotion, does that kind of scare you a little bit? Because we're going to see that this weekend with Burns and Usman.
Yeah, it's always a weird one. Like, if you've got guys fighting in the same promotion, same weight class, if both of them have title aspirations and they can, get close enough, they're eventually going to have to fight each other, right? Like, how do they work it when it gets to that point? Like, if one has the title and one's the contender, like, you either fight each other or one's just like, no, it's all right, you just keep the title and I'll just hang out here and just keep fighting other guys. Like, it's a very, very weird setup. And if you had the opportunity to go to a different promotion, why wouldn't you? But
I was watching the UFC countdown, right? And they had Kelvin Gastelum on there, and he was visiting, or he was in training camp. That's what it looked like. And he walks into King's MMA, and guess who's there? Marvin Vettori, the number 4 middleweight in the world. And Kelvin's getting ready for a fight. Marvin, of course, great teammate of his. They're both middleweights. They're both up there in that top 10, the best of the best echelons of the UFC in middleweight. And the coach is like, oh, the champ is here. You know, this is the best guy. He's looking to get the belt. And then Marvin Vettori's sitting there in the same room for practice. And you're like, this is going to get interesting, right? Like, I could see both of those guys winning and going back up next, you know, getting closer to the title at the same time. That's going to create a situation there too, right? Like, what happens then? Because I know Kelvin's been at King's since the beginning of his UFC run, basically, and Marvin's been there for a long time. This is the situation it's going to create when you have guys fighting in the same promotion. And it could also create that in like I said, in Team Lakai or whatever. But anyways, with that situation, we'll see what happens. But I don't know. I don't think it's gonna end nicely, to be honest with you, right? Because one of those guys is very outspoken about everything and loves to put everything out there. So we'll see what happens. Now let's look at this other title fight before we get into the Grand Prix. We got Pitbull versus Sanchez 2. That's the first Bellator 225 on April 2nd. Now they are broadcasted on Showtime. Is that a paywall, Drake?
You have to like have your channel subscription or whatever. Like, so yes, a paywall, but it's not like you have to buy every single event. It's just once you sign up for having the channel and the programming type of thing, like HBO, right? So same thing there.
Yeah, but with Pitbull versus Sanchez, man, this is Pitbull has been in the news a lot lately because of his knockout over Michael Chandler, and Michael Chandler going to the UFC and knocking out Dan Hooker. It's like 6 degrees of separation, and Pitbull's all 6 degrees basically, right? Like, he's just making the links and connections. And I love it, right? I love that Pitbull's out there expressing himself, growing his audience, and he should do that because why? He did beat the guy, right? When you beat the guy that beats the guy, you're the guy, right? So Pitbull's the guy, and anybody that watches Bellator, they know Pitbull has the skills to go over to the UFC and be the champ. Anybody that watches Bellator, seen his performances, and this guy's fighting in 2 divisions. With this Sanchez fight, though, do you think Sanchez is being a little bit overlooked, man, heading into this fight because of Pitbull and because of the Michael Chandler situation and kind of like proving Pitbull is one of the best in the world? Could that get to someone's head, or do you feel like Pitbull is mentally just strong enough to like look past that and beat Sanchez one more time?
Yeah, I think that Sanchez is absolutely being overlooked in this matchup. The guy has been on his run since their first fight, which was a very solid, competitive fight while it lasted. I'd say Pitbull definitely got the rightful, win in that one, but Sanchez was competitive with him, hung in there all 5 rounds. It was a very fun fight, but since then, he's looked, a little bit reinvented, I would say, and I think he's definitely being counted out in this one. Not to say he's going to win, though, just because it's like Pitbull is just so damn good, man. And I think that he's a guy who is just so incredibly confident, obviously, that he doesn't feel this kind of, pressure that he's bringing it on himself, right? So that alone tells me that, yeah, he doesn't give a shit. He's all for this attention and wants more of it. And, he's been thriving in it, as we've seen in his current run as well. So I'm very much looking forward to this one. I feel like everybody is just counting out Sanchez a lot more than they should. I think he'll provide a dangerous threat to Pitbull once again, but at the same time, it's like, we're not going to pick Sanchez, of course. Of course not.
Yeah, it's a fun matchup and a fun rematch, but I feel like everybody's thinking already Pitbull versus McKee for
Yeah.
that final. Everybody's thinking. I thought that already. I didn't even think about Pitbull fighting Sanchez next. I thought when Pitbull won and McKee won, I was like, oh, these guys are fighting each other. We're getting the finals. I didn't even think about Sanchez. Chris, when you look at Pitbull and McKee, is that the best scenario for Bellator, that fight to happen for the title in the finals?
I think so. I think that's the one everyone wants to see, right? That's the one everyone has kind of just set their heart on getting. So, I mean, hopefully that's the fight we get, because I feel like a lot of people have a lot of interest in AJ McKee now. And, like you say, everyone seems to know Pitbull by now. He's definitely making himself known to fans who aren't necessarily Bellator fans, which is a great move to draw eyes to the sport. And AJ McKee's, I mean, he poses a great test to Pitbull. So all going well, we're going to get that fight.
All right, now getting into the light heavyweight Grand Prix, we got the first fight, which is Ryan Bader versus Machida, a rematch. The first fight, Machida hit that clean counter and just dusted Ryan Bader. I don't think before that Ryan Bader hadn't really been finished like that. But Ryan Bader, one thing about him is during his UFC career, he's had some very weird finishes. Like he gets finished in a weird way. Like remember when he lost to Tito? I don't think you could ever live that down, right? Like when Tito was just like barely hanging on to like little strings, his little UFC strings, right?
That was
And he
do or
comes
die.
in. That was do or die, and he goes in there and Bader runs into a guillotine, and then we finally get to see Tito do his little gravedigger celebration, right? Which we all enjoy. Now Tito's living the great life of being a politician, which he didn't expect. Right? Like, isn't Tito the guy that like he like, oh, I'm gonna be a politician, but he didn't expect that type of lifestyle as a politician, and now he's a politician. Like he's all like, oh, I really got into some shit right now. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, can I quit this job or do I need to find someone to replace me? Do I give my 2 weeks notice? Like, man, it's just I don't even watch it too much, but of course I watch Brauchinia, what was it? Brauchinia, like he puts up all the highlights, and I'm pretty sure if you just watch his channel, his page, his page, you only see one side of it, which the side is that's what I'm watching. So from my lens, I only see him messing up every time and making ridiculous claims and doing ridiculous things. But Tito, I hope you're well, and maybe you'll be the next governor of California, and after that, you could become the president of the United States of America. POTUS 2036, maybe, I don't know. But if that does happen, then MMA will live forever, because Tito will make that happen, and he'll maybe I don't know, man. I'm just rambling. But anyways, let's get back to the Ryan Bader, right? Now, this is kind of controversial. I don't know if it's controversial, but I think this is a big talking point. Is Waleed Reed was saying, should Ryan Bader have defended his heavyweight belt or fight that light heavyweight tournament? I personally think he should have defended the heavyweight belt because fights are more exciting. And Waleed, I agree with Waleed because, man, why would you have the heavyweight champion get involved in a tournament and then you're saying on top of that, it's not going to hold up the division? Of course it's going to hold up the division. This dude's training for another fight. Like, how does that not hold up for? He's going to fight Phil Davis, and then he's going to go into training camp to fight to defend the heavyweight title. You're like setting him up to like lose that title instantly, right? Like he should be just focused on that heavyweight title. Chris, like, do you like Ryan Bader fighting Machida again? Because I don't think that has that juice like it did a few years back. People probably looked at that and said, why are you even having this guy even fight? You should have had different matchup styles. You should have had him fighting, Corey Anderson, right? Or at least had Machida fighting Corey Anderson. Did they fight already? I don't even know. A lot of these guys fought each other already. So it's a rematch. But it's just Ryan Bader at light heavyweight. Do we want to see that, Chris? Is that something when you saw the brackets, you're like, why is he even there?
Yeah, like why put your heavyweight champ in there? Like, that's just another fight that you can make soon, but you're not going to be able to now. Like, I mean, I love this light heavyweight tournament. Like, I think it's going to be great for Bellator, but I don't think Ryan Bader needed to be in there. I do think he should have defended the heavyweight bout. Just focus on that division for now. Nemkov, finished him pretty brutally. Like, you just put light heavyweight to the side for now at least, and focus on heavyweight. If you do lose the heavyweight belt, then go from there. But yeah, heavyweight belt should be defended soon. Yeah, it's weird. Like, I do think they are setting him up to lose it, like you say. But if that was an issue for him, surely he wouldn't have taken the light heavyweight stuff. So
Exactly. Well, there must be something going on behind the scenes. Drake, if he loses back-to-back at light heavyweight against Nemkov and Machida, and then he returns to heavyweight, does that heavyweight belt does it have as much significance as it did 2 fights ago? Because you just lost twice at light heavyweight against one guy who's the champ. Of course, that's good. Of course, if you're going to lose, you're going to lose to the champ, but you lose to Machida, who's not like championship status. Well, he could become that, but right now at this moment, he's not championship status, right? He's not at that level right now. He's going to maybe prove it to us, but right now he's not. You lose that fight. Let's say you get finished, you get KO'd again, and then you go up to heavyweight. Like, what does that do to Bellator? Like, did Bellator not think that?
Yeah, that would just destroy the legitimacy of the heavyweight title. Like, especially Machida, older Machida coming off a loss and everything. Like, that would be the best and worst case for the division, right? Because then, all right, we can go have him defend right away. We don't have to wait for this whole thing to sort itself out. But at the same time, man, that's going to feel really weird. Ryan Bader, he's going up to defend his title now on a 2-fight losing streak against hopefully not Czech Congo again, right? Hopefully not. Very possible. So, yeah, that would be very bad, but also the best case scenario. Like, it's weird. I love the idea of Bader in this tournament. I just don't love him in the tournament as still a champion. Like, here's one for you, John. Take Bader out of this equation. Keep everybody here already. Everything is beautiful as it is. But insert in Simon Byung. Put him in his spot. There we go. Let's get another up-and-coming guy who not a lot of people know about, like Yagshimuradov. You like that pronunciation there. Get somebody in there like that, a dark horse a bit, who can really make a name for themselves other than somebody who has a title to defend. Like, did we learn nothing from Bader in the heavyweight tournament? Like, he held up the light heavyweight title during that whole period. So it's bizarre, and they really back themselves into a corner, heavyweight division-wise. And then if, let's say, Bader goes to win the whole thing again, then it's like, well, kind of what was the point of that? Like, we're right back where we started.
Exactly. You want to build up names, right? And that's what this tournament is about, is to bring in the biggest names, but on top of that, to build up some of the up and coming guys that have great records. Like this, is he Russian? Yagshimuradov?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's Russian, right? And nobody really knows about him unless you watch the ACA or ACB. You don't really know much about him, but dude is a monster, and that's why they put him against Anderson, because maybe they want to build this guy off of Anderson and vice versa, right? And Anderson's still young. He's not in the position as Machida. And yeah, Simon should be in here, man. Like, when you look at the roster, the UFC roster, or not UFC roster, Brian Campbell did that yesterday, I think, during the broadcast. He said UFC instead of the Bellator, and that's not good, right? That's not a good look. But anyways, what is it? Yeah. So yeah, if you take out Bader could go defend the heavyweight title. You could push that title along, and that'll be great for Bellator. More headliners, right? And I think Bader is a great champion at heavyweight. I think that he's probably performed the best at heavyweight, to be honest with you. If you look back at his track record of like the different styles he fought to win the heavyweight title, remember, like the way that he beat Matt Mitrione compared to the way that he beat Fedor, completely different fights, right? So it showed his versatility at heavyweight, and he doesn't have to lose any weight, which is probably good for him. Yeah, so it's almost like they're waiting for the alternates to come in and fill the spots, right? Because this tournament is not going to play out like you imagine it to play out. But before we stop talking about it, of course, other podcasts are going to talk about Rumble and Romero through the whole thing, right? But we're talking about guys that should be in it. But who would you consider as the dark horse, Chris, of this light heavyweight tournament? Someone that, would most likely not win it, but you think like there's a part of you like, hey, this guy, I think he has it.
For me, it's Corey Anderson. That's kind of just always been Corey Anderson for me. The guy who could come up, surprise everyone, and win the title, but probably won't. We saw in the UFC, he got, went up and then got starched, and that was the end of that. Like, he's definitely got the talent, but he just hasn't been able to put the results together. I know in Bellator he had that, he won on debut against Phil Davis. Not the most exciting fight in the world, but he got the job done. And at the end of the day, as the fighter, that's all you need to do. So if Corey Anderson can wrestle his way through a couple of fights, like he's definitely a chance.
All right, Drake, what do you think on the opposite side? Who's the favorite, like the guy that should win this all?
Who should win it? I think it's the champ. I think Nemkov is legitimately the best guy in this tournament. And I dare say the best light heavyweight in the world. I will go along with the narrative that Scott Coker and Bellator are putting out there. I think Nemkov is that good, and he has proved it, that he's definitely one of the best, if not the best, and should very well be the favorite going through here. The guy, this is a great opportunity for him to prove to everybody just how legit he is. I don't think he's being slept on necessarily, but as we saw the odds today, he's not the favorite. I think Romero is the favorite, which you guys are going to learn. You're going to learn. Nemkov is still very good, even though I think his toughest matchup might be right in this first fight with Phil Davis, who arguably beat him in their first fight.
So they're talking about alternates, right? And I'm going to bring up the board right now of some of the light heavyweights, right? So when you look at this, some guys that it has the records next to him. I think Carl Albrechtsen, he's not a bad prospect, right? A guy that has fought in the UFC not in the UFC, Bellator a few times. There's guys like Simon, right? Simon Bion. We've seen him fight in Ryzen. You got Tyree Fortune. He's a decent prospect, right? You got the former champ, Liam McGreary. I know he's had a rough run the last couple of fights, but still, he's still a former champ. You could have put him in there. I don't know if you will put Melvin Manhoof as an alternate, but when you look at alternates, right, you could think Carl Albertson. You can think Julius Akalekas. I don't even know how to say that, but that's how I say it. Simon Bion. You got I'm just looking at guys that make sense. You could put Liam McGreary there. Yeah, so there's a few guys there. What do you think? Who would you choose as the alternate? We already know Drake is thinking like Simon Bion would probably most likely be the number one alternate. Chris, what do you think? What would be the best alternate of the guys that you see on the screen?
I'd agree with Simon Bion, but maybe someone like a Grant Neal as well, someone who's quite new, quite fresh, hasn't lost in the promotion. Like, I mean, that's going to be an absolute dark horse, and why not give a new guy like that the shot?
Definitely. No, yeah, it's just it's a fun heavyweight, light heavyweight tournament. Now, another thing is talk important because due to the tournament is like, why isn't Gegard Mousasi in the tournament? And it's the same reason why Ryan Bader shouldn't be in the tournament, but he's in the tournament, which is so weird, right? Like, Mousasi is going to focus on moving the middleweight division forward, and then we got Bader holding up the heavyweight division, and it's just, I don't know, it doesn't make any sense. I would have rather seen Machida versus Mousasi, the rematch. I would rather see that compared to,
the trilogy fight, John. I don't know. I was there for the rematch. It wasn't that great.
Oh, the trilogy fight. I forgot they even fought twice, but
Exactly.
I'd rather see that compared to what is it? And we got some Ryan Bader versus Jack Hager for the Bellator heavyweight title.
That would be a big sell. It might
That
not
would
make
be
sense, but hey.
Yeah, why not?
It's
Why
all
not,
about
right?
selling, man. Like that would definitely sell.
WrestleMania weekend? Come on.
Yeah, no kidding, dude.
Right?
Might as well just put it on WrestleMania. Just do a crossover.
Yeah.
Ladder match.
There you go. Bellator is all about cross promoting. There you go.
Cage
That's
match.
the perfect
Easy.
Yep.
cage match at WrestleMania. Ryan Bader versus Jack Hager for the Bellator heavyweight title.
That'd
We
be
already
wild.
created the narrative. You know what's gonna happen is Bader's gonna have like something, and then but mysteriously he's now defending the heavyweight title against Jack Hager. And I think Jack Hager's camp would love that, right? They would just love to be in there just as an opportunity. Is Jack Hager ready? Not even close.
No.
But it's a fight that you would never say no to. You'd have to say yes. What else do we got here? All right, now does Showtime change anything for anybody? Does them being on Showtime change anything for the promotion? Is it better? If you think about it, when the UFC goes on, what were they? Were they on ABC? Yeah, UFC goes on ABC, right? Everybody's making this deal about that. Is it the same as Bellator going onto Showtime? Is that comparable right there? Do you think, Chris?
See, this goes like right over my head down this side of the world because that makes no difference to me. It's all just either on Sky Sport or it's just find a stream. Like all the network stuff in America just means nothing to me.
What about Drake? What about you? You're over there in the US of A.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid boost, especially just presentation wise. Like Showtime has always been incredibly clean with their presentation. And not to say that Bellator hasn't, especially since Scott Coker took over, but it's just a known platform and one that has been able to sustain, combat sports in the past. Primarily boxing has just been consistent for I don't even know how long, a good while now. But this is the callback to the Strikeforce days. Showtime was the home of Strikeforce, man. You got to remember that. So we're pretty much going full circle here. And Coker even mentioned that in the press conferencing they did. So if you just want to look at the success that Showtime was able to bring in helping, what Strikeforce was able to do by themselves, then yeah, I think this is a very big deal for Bellator to have this kind of relationship again, just in terms of what it can do for their longevity, right?
All right. Well, two more things. We're coming up on the 90-minute mark, so two more things we'll get into, and then we'll be out of here. The first thing is connected to the tournament is Alan Bones Jones said, how big of a factor is it that they are at the Mohegan Sun where Rumble and Romero won't be drug tested? Now, first of all, they'll be drug tested. You know what I mean? But it's not. You see, the thing is, like, a lot of fans and people that watch the sport, they feel like USADA should be done with every promotion. Right. And like USADA is what the UFC is using, right? It's not what other promotions are using. There's nothing, what Bellator is using is the commission in Connecticut. And the commission is the one who, administers drug testing, right? It's not Bellator that is administrating the drug testing. So you guys got to get that straight. USADA is someone that works with the UFC that goes and tests fighters like during their training camps in the off season. Bellator doesn't do that. So does it become a factor? Yes, it becomes a factor. Of course it becomes a factor, but I would like to think that these guys are not using, because has Rumble been busted for using anything? No. Has Romero's been busted, but it got overturned, right? Because he brought in the supplements that he was taking. You got to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, like, okay, these guys, we've never seen them like legit get caught for using anything. And I know that there's a lot of speculations about Romero, and because he's this age and what he looks like, he's just a specimen, man. He's just a guy that is blessed by the hands of God, right? Just that's what he is, right? And Johnson, same thing. Rumble Johnson, same thing. So do you think it's a factor, Chris? Do you look into that too much? Like, that's the last thing I was thinking about is drug testing.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. Like, I don't think it's that much of a factor just because they use a different company. People obviously aren't overly aware of Bellator's practices, which I guess is fair enough. Like, as a fan of a sport, I'm not going out of my way to find out who's doing what sort of drug testing. I just want to watch the sports. So, yeah, I don't think it's too much of a factor. And yeah, like you say, I give these guys the benefit of the doubt. Like, there's no reason for me to think that they're going to be using. So it's just not something that I ever thought about till just now.
Yeah, it is kind of, a lot of drug testing. Here's another one. It's like, this is Bellator. We were talking about juice allowed. Do you think that there is that stigma? Like, okay, Bellator is going to allow you to juice and it doesn't matter. Drake.
No, but I know where it's coming from, kind of back in the day when it felt a little bit more Wild West, and like fighters like Bobby Lashley were competing specifically only in these Indian reservation type locations. So I get it, but I feel like we have moved past that. If anything, people, I think, put on more of that stigma on like Ryzen still to this day, which they do test, you guys. That is just a fact. Of course, it's nobody's doing USADA though. So now that the UFC brought in USADA, that's the one thing everyone compares to, the strictest place. They're like, oh, well, if no one else is doing that, then these guys have to be getting away with something, right? So it's like, that's just always going to be the case going forward until somebody else decides to jump on something as serious as USADA.
All right. Now, me, it's like, I like to just go by the rules of each promotion. Like, I don't, like, of course you shouldn't use it, but I just want to go by the rules of each promotion. Like, that's the last thing on my mind. Is like, oh, you won the title, but since you fought for Bellator, you're probably juiced, so it doesn't matter. Dude went in there and did like 12-week training camp. You do a 12-week training camp for anything, and you feel like that doesn't matter? Come on, man. And then you go in there and, like, let's say you get in a 5-round war and win and win a belt. That matters, man. Like, I just go with the rules, man, of what the promotion's saying. Like, there's guys that are open about it. There's guys that are not open about it. But we'll see what happens with Rumble. Have we seen guys get suspended by Bellator? I feel like we have seen guys get suspended by Bellator, or not by Bellator, but by the commission that runs the show over there. So we'll see what happens. Now, what is it? The last thing is, here we go. This is kind of going into like UFC 261 with Weili. It says, a few weeks ago, John said Weili's not big enough. I said Weili's not big enough to start, and I probably said that she's not big enough to headline a pay-per-view, but I follow her on WeChat and she has 4 million followers and she's always communicating with her fans. Okay, she has 4 million followers. That's great for her in China, but really she should have 14 or 40 million followers in China.
Low.
Yeah, 4 million is not that many people when you put it into perspective of, like, let's compare her to like a Paige Van Zandt, right? Where Paige Van Zandt doesn't have. Imagine if there was like a Chinese Paige Van Zandt. Ooh, I would think she had 40 million followers. Don't you think so in China?
Yeah, there might be one out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Exactly. We just don't know, right? There could be one with like 50 million followers on WeChat. But if I said that, I don't, like, half the stuff I don't remember, and half the stuff I don't even fact check. So when we're talking out here, we're just talking, and sometimes it comes out beautifully, and sometimes it just comes out like trash. So, if I said that, I said that. But I do believe that she's not big enough to headline a pay-per-view. They'd have to bring somebody in. And UFC 261, the tweet that I put out was that I said that they're in the early stages of putting that fight card together. I didn't say it was a pay-per-view. I said it was going to be, they're talking about putting it in Singapore. If they do make it a pay-per-view in Singapore, Weili's going to fight on it. I don't know if she's going to headline it. And if she does, man. It's like, there's nothing we can do about it. Is it going to get like massive pay-per-view buys? Like, to me, I don't really care about pay-per-view buys, but I don't think it's going to get that pay-per-view buys. Will she do similar to, like, let's say this weekend's card? I feel like if you stack it enough, it'll be similar to this weekend's card. This weekend's card, if you look at it, is it the most stacked pay-per-view of the year? No. If you compare it to last week's last pay-per-view, it's not even close, right? So sometimes the UFC is going to have to put on pay-per-views that you're not going to like. And if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it, right? Like Dana White says. But yeah, is Weili going to be the headliner? She could, but is it going to be like this massive like explosion of like pay-per-view numbers? No, not at all. But I heard some rumors floating around now. Drake, I want to get your talks on both those topics, but the rumor is like Valentina and Andrade will be on that card with them, and they should announce that pretty soon. That's a rumor that's going around, and that could be I could see that as the main event. Who knows, right? That could be co-invented. You could exchange that either way. So what do you think? What do you think about Weili and her star power as a pay-per-view?
It's funny because I think that if this question was asked, or like, yeah, hey, is she big enough of a star to headline a pay-per-view? If you asked this like 3 months after her last fight, right, like a lot closer to it, I think we all would have been like, hell yeah, because of this lasting impression that just came off of one of the greatest fights we've ever seen. But now it's been so long, and MMA fans have, goldfish memories for the most part. It's like, yes, that fight is still very memorable, and we do remember it very fondly. But again, it's going to be almost a full year ago now. For the major casual audience who did see that, they've probably forgotten about it, because if they're not following as closely as anybody who's beyond a casual, that's going to be something that just isn't going to resonate the same. So if you would have asked this a lot sooner than now, I would say, yeah, for sure. But since it's been so much time, unfortunately, it would be much more of a gamble to have her headline a pay-per-view. But if it does happen, I like what you're saying, John. Have it with, another title fight like Valentina or Andrade. But then again, it probably wouldn't headline in that case, because they always do the higher weight class unless it's a special occasion like, champ versus champ or Connor, John Jones kind of situation.
Yeah, so I'm hearing many different things. I'm pretty sure Drake is hearing many different things, but we don't know what Chris is hearing on his side of the world. Alan Bones Jones asks, what should we expect at UFC 261 in Singapore? Have you heard anything? Have you heard any fighters talking about, hey, I think I'm going to fight on that Singapore card? You don't have to name no names, but have you heard little snappities like in the grapevine?
Haven't heard anything about that one. Probably because every New Zealand UFC fighter is fighting in March. So, yeah. So they won't be fighting on the Singapore card.
Well, maybe we could get Dan to come back. Dan, you give him a good enough fight, like he'll come back quick and
absolutely
put it all on the line, But I can see Dan kind of chilling. I can see Dan kind of chilling out a little bit for a little while and enjoying life, and then coming back when it's ready to go for him. There's a lot more we could have talked about, man, but we're going over the time limit. Next week, we'll be back with another guest, and maybe, I don't know, we're gonna have 2 more people. But next week we're gonna have a coach for sure this time. Not like I'm tricking you, but for sure next time. Chris, man, I'm gonna have you back on here, no doubt, man. Over the years, however long this goes, I'll reach out to you and get you back on, and maybe we'll try to get you back on before that Israel pay-per-view, so we could just talk about Israel, and behind his back.
Oh, good. Yeah, no worries, man. Thanks for having me on. If anyone from South Auckland happens to be watching, at the Ortado Rec Center at 6:30 tonight, all the Auckland UFC boys are going to be doing a free pad session. So head along to that. You'll see Kai and Shane and Israel and Brad and Carlos all out there hitting pads with you.
What about you? Are you going to be hitting pads, or are you just going to be out there?
I've got other work to do, unfortunately, so I can't make it out there. So right. I'll just, hopefully there's plenty of video going around, because it'd be good to see a big crowd out there.
For sure.
Jeez, and the people want to see you, Chris. Jeez. Yeah.
I'm going to see you spar.
If they look hard enough, they can find me boxing on YouTube.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching and commenting, and sorry we didn't get into all the questions, but next week you could ask the same questions. We'll talk about it. Drake, of course, he's going to be always on here. He's a frequent guest. Not even a guest. He's like a co-host in many ways. But he's going to be back. So anybody go to SCMP MMA. Drake, I've seen Drake. He's doing some work over there too now. or he's been doing some work over there. So see some great stuff from him, some good interviews. I got some stuff coming up in the pipeline. I don't want to say what it is, but I don't want to jinx it. You know how stuff works in MMA.
Very mysterious.
Yeah. Just jinxing things. I don't want to do that. But yeah, thank you so much, Chris. Thank you, Drake. Thank you, everybody watching. Thank you so much. And like, subscribe. Oh, actually, go to Chris's YouTube page. Chris, tell everybody. Subscribe to that.
It's Time for Sports. Just something new, something fun. I've learned that in print, a lot of stuff goes missing or just gets left on the cutting floor. So I'm just uploading all my interviews in full on there now. So yeah, it's Time for Sports. Pretty easy to find, and at the moment, it's pretty much just city kickboxing stuff. So as you'd expect.
There you go. It's Time for Sports. Go check them out and subscribe, like, comment on all their stuff, man. It only helps everybody. Go to Drake's page. You know what it is. His name, Drake Riggs. And I'll see you guys next week.